now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade JJ Williams, and today we're going to be taking a look at Like Father, Like Son, starring Dudley Moore, Kirk Cameron, Margaret Cullen, Patrick O'Neill, Catherine Hicks, and Sean Astin. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. As I said during the introduction, today we're going to take a look at a film called Like Father, Like Son. Now, before I get into the synopsis of all this and tell you everything that goes down, let me just say that some of the wording in this may come off as confusing, but just keep in mind this is essentially a male version of Freaky Friday. So instead of Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan switching bodies, it's Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron. Okay? So keep that in mind as I go through this, because as I was writing it, I tried to simplify it as best as I can, but it still came off a little confusing in some parts, even for me. So here we go. As our movie opens, Chris Hammond is a high school senior. His crush, Lori, is dating his rival and the school bully, Rick. And his father, Jack, is a very successful surgeon who is working hard to get a promotion to the chief of staff position at the hospital. And Jack wants his son to become a doctor as well, but Chris is completely uninterested. Chris's friend, Trigger, has an uncle named Earl who was bitten by a snake in the desert. And Earl had his leg fixed by Native Americans due to the assistance of a body switching potion called the Brain Transference Serum. Trigger demonstrates to Chris how it works by using it on Chris's cat and dog as they watch the animals switch bodies. Now, Trigger brought the serum in a Tabasco bottle, which the Hammonds' housekeeper, Phyllis, finds and puts away into the food cupboard. And Jack, unknowingly, pours some of it into his Bloody Mary. Now, the potion works via ingestion, and then the next person to look into their eyes switches bodies with them. So after ingesting the serum through the Bloody Mary, Jack ends up looking into Chris's eyes as they argue over a C grade on a very important test. As a result, the father and son switch bodies. Trigger tells the Hammonds that he will get in contact with his uncle Earl in order to try to find a way for the two to switch back. However, Earl is just left on another trip. Now, Chris goes to town in his dad's body and uses his dad's credit card to shop and parties with Trigger along for the ride. While partying, Chris bumps into his dad's boss's wife while in a bar. But he doesn't realize who she is. She starts to flirt with him, and he responds favorably to her flirtations. Now, Jack discovers that Chris got drunk while in his body and proceeds to chew him out and punish him for it. The next day, Jack goes to school in Chris's place, and Chris is told that he can't leave the house or go to Jack's job, as Chris called the office to call out sick for a few days. Now, Jack's boss, feeling that all this is kind of weird for him, goes to Jack's house in order to check on him, and he sees Chris in Jack's body bouncing around like he's feeling better. So as a result, Chris in Jack's body gets told that he has to come into work at the private hospital that his dad works at, and ends up handing out a whole bunch of pills to patients while doing rounds. He also seconds a motion proposed by one of his dad's colleagues, suggesting that the hospital could treat patients with no insurance. And in Chris's words, the hospital should just screw the insurance. Meanwhile, Jack encounters problems of his own while in Chris's body. At school, his knowledge of the lessons being taught, as well as his willingness to point out certain troublemakers during class, ends up getting him shunned by his fellow students. Jack ends up taking his son's girlfriend, Lori, to a concert. However, he doesn't enjoy it as he finds the music to be way too loud. He then fails to perform well at a big track meet, dropping the baton during a relay race and diving for the finish line, coming up way short. Rick later beats him up for taking Lori out and choking at the track meet. They are finally able to get in touch with Earl, who tells them that in order to get the antidote, they must take a trip to Death Valley. After a couple of hiccups along the way, they are finally able to find the key ingredient for the antidote. Earl makes the potion, and Chris and Jack drink it. However, when they look into each other's eyes, it doesn't immediately work. Earl then explains that sometimes it could take a little while for the potion to kick in. So everyone goes back home, and the potion finally kicks in and works the following day, as Jack, still in Chris's body, is running late for a meeting with the school counselor. He slips on the wet floor and ends up knocking a woman out of the school window. Meanwhile, Chris, still inside of Jack's body, is on his way to a meeting regarding his dad becoming the chief of staff at the hospital, which will not happen now that Jack's boss knows what Chris did while in Jack's body. Now back in each of their respective bodies, both men race to the hospital, although Chris takes just a moment to knock out Rick. Chris is rushing in Jack's car, destroying it along the way, and he barges into the meeting room and speaks up, attempting to persuade his dad's boss to give him the job, but his boss refuses to listen. Jack then walks into the meeting and declares that he no longer wants the chief of staff position. Instead, he would rather spend time with his son. They go home, and on the way out, Trigger sees Rick and gives him the brain transference serum. The next person to look into Rick's eyes is none other than Jack's boss, Dr. Larry Armbuster. They scream and switch bodies as our movie comes to its end. So, like I said in the beginning, if you've seen Freaky Friday, either version that's out there, you've seen this story before. It's just a matter of, would you prefer to watch the original where mother-daughter switch place? Or would you maybe like to watch the alternative and see a father-son swap places? The concept behind these movies was so popular that it would be done an entire year later with two different actors, which we're going to get into on Friday. Both of them were actually put out by Columbia. TriStar Pictures, which was a subsidiary of Columbia, distributed Like Father, Like Son. And Columbia proper distributed Vice Versa, which is the other Fred Savage movie we'll talk about on Friday. The same movie studio essentially put out the same movie a year apart. And it's not anything that's never happened before. You know, we've had this type of stuff happen in movie history. You think about Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. You know, you think about some of the disaster movies that came out in the 90s. Not far off from each other, you know, Deep Impact and Armageddon. You know, it's stuff that's happened before. You would think that the studio would realize that they just essentially put this movie out and not do it so close together, but if it drew money, you know, it's the old saying, if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? So when it comes to these two movies, it really is a matter of what duo do you prefer? Do you prefer British comedian Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron from The Growing Pains? Or do you prefer who we're going to see on Friday, Fred Savage and Judge Reinhold? Judge Reinhold, of course, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He had done at least Beverly Hills Cop 1 and maybe Part 2 by the time he did Vice Versa. So, you know, he had a pretty good career going as well. It's just a matter of your styles and your differences. I will say this. My girlfriend and I both sat back watching this one, and we kind of scratched our heads about it. We were like, why did we like this so much when we were kids? And at the end of the day, I had to tell her, it's the whole parent child switching places thing that always appealed to us. Because when you're a kid, you think that, oh man, I can't wait till I get to be older. I can drink, I can smoke, I can drive, I can do whatever I want. Nobody's there to stop me. And when you're an adult, you're looking at the kid like, man, I wish I could go back to you when you didn't have all those responsibilities. Both people think that the other one has it better. And it's not until they make the switch and live a few days in the other one's body that they start to realize that really things are kind of good the way they were. Man, I can't wait to get back to being a kid. Going to work sucks. Having to pay bills sucks. Man, my kid doesn't have it as easy as I thought he did, man. He's got teachers that don't understand him and they don't know the subject matter they're teaching. He's got bullies and everything he's got to deal with. It's one of those things. That's why we liked it as a kid. Going back and rewatching it now, while the cast was pretty awesome, Catherine Hicks, I love Catherine Hicks. She is Andy's mom in the Child's Play franchise. That's what I know her best as. Sean Astin was hot off the heels of Goonies. A couple more years, he'd go on to do Encino Man, and then, of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And later on, he'd get into Stranger Things. Kirk Cameron was riding the wave right then of Growing Pains. Like, that show was huge in the late 80s and the early 90s. Dudley Moore, I never was a huge Dudley Moore fan. But that's not to say that there aren't people that enjoyed him. He was in the original Bedazzled. He was in Arthur. He had so many movies. So obviously he was a successful actor and a bankable star. I just never got into him personally. I don't feel that Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron had as much fun with it when they switched bodies as Fred Savage and Judge Reinhold did, which I'll get into in more detail on Friday. So when it comes to my rating for Like Father, Like Son, I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy this movie a lot when I was a kid. It definitely had repeat viewings back then. I don't feel like this version holds up today. Personal standpoint. I'm curious to know what you guys think about it, though. What do you guys think of Like Father, Like Son? Let me know. If you're watching the premiere, leave your thoughts and comments over here. If you're watching on demand later in the day, leave your thoughts and comments down here. Let's engage in that conversation. Let's have that banter back and forth in the comment box. Y'all know I reply to you. Let's engage in conversation about this. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Make sure you guys tune in on Friday, right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews as we take a look at another Freaky Friday-esque movie, Vice Versa, starring Fred Savage, Judge Reinhold, Swoozie Kurtz, Jane Kasmerick, Beverly Archer, James Hahn, and Jane Lynch. You're not going to want to miss out on that one. Right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. Right back here on another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. Make sure you guys tune in. You don't want to miss that. All my loyal fans and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in today and joining me. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure the notification bell is turned on so you can get up-to-date notifications whenever a new video of mine goes live. Make sure you share this video with your family, friends, movie lovers, Kirk Cameron fans, Dudley Moore fans, Sean Astin fans, Growing Pains fans, anybody that you can think of that would enjoy this film and this review, share the video with them. Help boost up my viewership hours, help boost me up in the YouTube algorithms so I can get monetized by the end of the year. We can make this happen, folks. I know I sound like a broken record, and I apologize for that. But let's get there, and then you won't have to hear me talk about it no more, right? Thank you again to all you guys and girls who tuned in and joined me here today. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.